Okay, good morning, class. This is your professor, Professor Smith. I'm doing my Reflection One blog, uh, the introduction. Um, yeah, I'm a filmmaker, and it's really interesting because I don't actually like being in front of the camera. So, anyway, but let's get to it. So, this is my first blog. Um, and I'm going to answer the questions that I've asked you to answer. The first one being, who are you? How do you define your identity? So, who am I? I am me, right? I don't know. Uh, I would define myself as the descendant of African queens and kings, right? Descendants of the enslaved African in the United States and probably beyond throughout the diaspora. Um, I don't have any political affiliations, mostly because I feel that the political system is all jacked up, and I honestly don't want to be affiliated with any of the political parties. Um, let's see. Uh, I am from the Midwest, St. Louis, Missouri. Yay, yay. But my family migrated from Mississippi. So a lot of my roots are from the South, and just like a lot of Black folks, a lot of our roots come from the South because a majority of enslaved Africans were transported ended up in some of the southern states. So a lot of my family came from Mississippi. Um, Let's see. I grew up in a very low economic class level. We were poor. We were on welfare. Um, and I was one of three kids in a single mother household. Um, and that really did a lot for the way I grew up because we didn't have a dual income, right? We really didn't even have one income. We had welfare income because my mom was on welfare. So just imagine a black woman raising three kids on her own in the 80s, in the late 70s and 80s, when the civil rights movement had happened, but still things were being integrated and racism was still in the air. Like it was still blatant. And then also being raised by a mom who grew up in the 50s, 60s, right? When civil rights, before civil rights, where there was blatant discrimination against Black people. So that's how I grew up. I was a part of the integration system in the 80s, where they integrated white schools with Black students. So I was bused to a white school for a couple of years and experienced my first instance of racism. I was called the N word by a little white boy. Um, in second grade, and I didn't even know what that meant because in my family we didn't talk about things like that. And so I kind of grew up, I say, ignorant of like racial issues within the United States. So that's sort of like where I came from. Why did I decide to go to college? Everybody I knew who went to college made something of themselves, right? And growing up in a single parent household on welfare, growing up being made fun of by other people who had more money than me. So, I wanted to make money. I wanted to make money, simple as that. I didn't really understand the concept of college because no one ever explained it to me. And in fact, any funds or scholarships that I even learned about, I learned from a white coworker that showed me what she showed her daughter, and so just to show you, like, when you're in a poor neighborhood, and you're in a school that really has some racial biases, you'll find that you don't have the support system that you need to further your education, and thus further your social economic status, and further your life in general. And so a lot of the things I had to do on my own. But that's the reason I wanted to go to college. But what really made me become invested in college was an African American history class that I took at Laney years and years later when I was in my mid 20s. It was around the time of 2003 as well. I think I told some of you about the Voting Rights Act and how it was expiring and was in the hands of George Bush to extend. And I don't consider myself a politically savvy person. At least I didn't then. I'm definitely more aware of social issues now. But then I didn't really consider myself politically savvy, but I did know, or I had a feeling of the consequences of losing our right to vote. And then just learning that a lot of Black folks didn't know anything about the Voting Rights Act, how it became an act in itself, why we had a Voting Rights Act, and then most importantly, they didn't know that it expired. And that right there kind of pushed me into learning more about American history, about U.S. history specifically, because as a U.S. citizen, regardless of what mainstream society may say, as a U.S. citizen, I needed to know my rights. And so that really is what pulled me into the university. And so that's how I became college. Why am I taking this African American course? I'm not taking it, I'm teaching it. Why am I teaching it? Because I feel like everybody needs to know different cultures from their own. And then there's a vast history of African Americans that is untold, especially in high school and in elementary school. And so you have an opportunity to get the information that you've never received during your primary educational career, excuse me. So I'm teaching this because I feel like it's an important part of society that is often left in the margins, along with other POC histories. Yeah, it's a pertinent part of American society, and you can't really function as a human being, as an American, quote unquote, American citizen, without knowing the history of the United States, without knowing the history of Americas, and the colonization of Americas. And so that's why I really went the way of African American history, the way of African American studies, got my MA in ethnic studies, because it is often the most pertinent part of U.S. history. All right, so that was my introductory blog, way longer, only because I like to talk. I'm expecting you guys to be, if you're doing video, around 5 minutes. Don't feel that you need to tell all of your history, but definitely answer those questions that's in the instructions and the directions on the blog, and try to make it 5 minutes. All right, I look forward to seeing and reading about each of you. Thanks.